Do you ever find yourself stuck in a loop when you're in an argument with your partner? You're trying your best to not make it worse, but everything that you say and your partner says, it just seems to be escalating the argument more and more. Well, in this video, I'm going to offer you some strategies so that you can get out of that vicious loop and actually de-escalate from the argument. And we're starting right now. Hey everyone, my name is Harry Chediar. I'm a trained psychotherapist and an emotional intelligence consultant, helping people have a better relationship with themselves and others. If you're new to this channel, remember to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified as I release new videos. Now let's jump right into it. When it comes to arguments, every argument looks different, and there are a lot of different factors that play into this. I find one of the common factors is actually the life stage that you're in. For instance, couples with really little kids, I find that's a time when it's a big strain on the relationship because children have a way of just taking all your attention, and then it becomes really hard and you're really tired by the end of the day to give any attention to your partner. And then the sense of connection over time just deteriorates. Another factor that I find that plays into this is your past and your personality, how it's shaped based on the attachment with your parents when you were kids. And the way that you argue in the present day can actually be shaped very much by that past history. Based on some of these factors that I mentioned, it's going to change how your argument looks in your relationship and how each individual in the argument, their role is. You know, like sometimes some people tend to be more of the person that's reaching out, and over time they try and communicate, they try and reach out, but then eventually it just builds up within them when they can't get through, and then they start to raise their voice or they get louder and louder, and then they start yelling. It's almost like there's a part of them that's so desperate to get through, and the other partner might be, based on, again, some of these factors, they might be the type of person that, withdraws and shuts down. And when they hear the other person getting more agitated, it might even make them anxious, and then they might just further retreat and they just stop talking. Which means this just makes it worse because, again, the other person that's trying to get through, they're just like, why aren't you hearing me? Do you not care? It just becomes that much worse, the vicious loop. What this does is over time, all of these smaller arguments just build up this sense of resentment, and it's just this lingering resentment. And what it does is the next time there's an argument, it seems to have this energy, this force that it comes with. So it might be the smallest thing, but then the argument right away becomes really escalated. It's because there's been this lingering resentment that's been building up, and that's coming right into the argument in the present moment. Unfortunately, what happens is, as this continues, sometimes people just end up shutting off from their emotions. It doesn't feel like a safe place to express their emotions for both people. So then what happens is people just start to gradually disconnect and distance themselves. And this is where the communication starts to slowly fall apart. They're not really even trying. They almost disengage. And then by that point, it's almost like you're roommates and you're not really in a relationship, in an intimate relationship together. I find one of the common problems is people get stuck into this loop because each person's approach looks different. And again, there are some of the factors that I mentioned, the way that they were brought up. For instance, some people are brought up to think more logically. That's just how they're socialized, especially men. So a lot of times what happens is their mind goes quickly into this problem-solving mode, and they're into that logical space. But unfortunately, the other person might be actually having an emotional experience, and they're really emotionally overwhelmed at that time. Now, I just want everyone to know that I'm not saying that logic doesn't have space in this. The truth is, yes, we do need to have a logical conversation, and the problem solving does need to take place because at some point, practical solutions do need to be put into place. But what I'm saying is, initially, what you want to prioritize is actually the emotional connection. Feeling heard, understood, acknowledging. And sometimes this is the hardest part, especially I can tell you, especially for being a man, that's one of the hardest things because we want to be able to do more, and it's really hard to actually do less in the moment. So the idea of just acknowledging the other person or offering your hand and just having some silence for even 20 seconds can feel excruciating. And that's why a lot of times we quickly go into this logic rather than the emotion. Now, it's easier said than done, so by the end of this video, what I'm hoping to do is actually give you some concrete strategies so that you can use them in the moment. My tip number 1 is to be intentional about the words that you're using. Try not to make statements that feel like you're, accusing the other person. So if you say, hey, you were the one that told me to do this, you forgot to put the garbage away, or whatever it is, that just feels like it's accusing the other person, and what can happen is the other person can start to become defensive, and in fact they may start attacking you back, which just is going to fuel the fire. So what you want to do is express your needs in a way that they can hear what's actually going on for you underneath. You might want to say, hey, I've had a really long day. I'm really hoping that you could help me out and put the garbage out. And I've mentioned it multiple times in the past. I feel like you haven't really heard me, and that's been upsetting me. Can we talk about this? Convey the message in a way that they get to see what's going on for you underneath, rather than hearing it in a way that it feels like you're accusing them. And the other, in terms of being intentional about the words, the other thing that I would caution you is try not to use words like always and never. These are these global statements that can be, again, quite triggering for the other person. So if you say something like, you never put out the garbage, what the hell is wrong with you? Of course, that's just gonna set the other person off. And again, depending on the history in the relationship, the other person may either get really defensive and start yelling back, or they might just shut off and just stop talking. And sometimes that can actually feel worse, because then, it feels like they're not acknowledging you, they're not hearing you. My tip number 2 is to make sure that you hear and you understand your partner's experience. The reason why this is important is, like I said earlier, if you come in with logic or whatever, your reasons are, the other person's going to feel like you're not connecting with them on an emotional level. You're not actually hearing and understanding their experience, their emotional experience. So the way you want to go about doing this is to paraphrase and restate some of the things that they're saying. This will make sure that they know that you actually heard what they were saying. So for instance, if you and your partner have been talking about an ongoing issue, maybe you've been coming home late from work, you've been really caught up with your work-related tasks, and maybe your partner has been feeling stressed or overwhelmed with all the load at home and her work. So let's say, you come in late again, and then your partner says, hey, I've had a long day, I'm really tired, the kids it's been really exhausting, how come you're late again? And let's say they're frustrated with you, they're upset with you. At that point, what you want to do is actually acknowledge that and say, hey, you know what, I can see that you're frustrated, I can see that you're upset, and it must have been a lot with the kids, and I know it can be really hard. I'm really sorry. Let's talk about this once the kids go to sleep. I really do want to hear what's going on for you, and let's reconnect at that point. If you say something along that line, of course, you're going to word it to make sure that it fits for you so it feels natural, but something along that line to just make sure that your partner knows that you heard what they said. They're frustrated, they're overwhelmed, they're upset, and you heard that, and you understand and value that. That's what you need to convey to them. Now, this brings us to tip number 3, which is to take accountability and ownership whenever you can. If this work situation has been an ongoing thing and your partner has talked to you about it, and you made the mistake of once again coming in late because you got into tunnel vision with some work-related activity, then own that. Say, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry. I know I told you I would be coming back home on time, but once again, I ended up staying longer. I have certain issues at work that I've been dealing with, but I do want to figure this out because this is not okay. And so you owning that and taking accountability is going to help your partner feel like you actually care and you value about their experience. And you're not trying to be defensive. You're actually trying to work on your issue, right? And that's something that you want to make sure you convey to your partner. Now, I just want to let everyone know this is my first YouTube video. And I really hope to create more videos to get some information out there for people. So if you could help me out, please leave some comments down below. And if you have any questions or feedback, I want to hear it. I want to be able to improve the way that I'm presenting to you guys on this camera. If you want to learn more about how your emotional world can impact your day-to-day relationships at home and your work, please remember to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified as I release new videos.